our first keynote speaker, I am delighted to introduce to you. I have known him for many years. I think I first interviewed him for the BBC back in the 1990s when we were discussing the crisis in Iraq together. He's a man who's devoted much of his life to the quest for peace. He turned his diplomatic skills into a career at the United Nations. He joined the United Nations in the 1960s. He rose to be Secretary General. For his work at the UN, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. He has, since leaving the UN, established his own foundation devoted both to the search for peace in some of the world's most troubled places, but also focused very much on human development. And as part of that, a real commitment to discussing better ways to deliver food security to some of the most needy in our world today, particularly on his own continent of Africa, where he has also been a key mover and driver of efforts to deliver a green revolution for Africa. All of that by way of introduction to a man many of you will already be very familiar with. So do give a very warm welcome to Kofi Annan.
When he was ending his introduction, I thought he was going to say that here is a man who needs no introduction. And I often warn people to be very careful about that, because I recall when I stepped down as Secretary General over 10 years ago, my wife and I decided we were very tired. You never know how tired you are until you stop. So we borrowed a friend's house in Como and wanted to spend 3 months incognito. And we had a house adjacent to the forest, and so we can go in and walk. And I said, no television, no radio, no newspapers. And after 6 weeks, I was completely bored. So I said, let's go to the village to see if we can get a paper. We walked into a tobacconist shop, and within seconds, a group of men in one corner were staring at us. One of them broke and made straight for me, and I turned to my wife and said, gosh, we have 6 weeks to go, and we've broken our cover. How are we going to manage the village? By then, the fellow was on top of me, put his hand out, and said, Morgan Freeman. May I have an autograph? So I said, sure. I signed K. Freeman, he was happy, and we were happy, and continued our work. Stephen, let me thank you for that warm welcome. I remember vividly the last interview we had, which was 91 in Amman, following the first Iraq war. And let me also thank Syngenta and the European Landowners Organization for inviting me to join you to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Forum for the Future of Agriculture. In just a decade, this forum has become one of the premier venues to debate vital issues of agriculture, food security, and the environment. We have seen significant progress on these issues over the past few years. Scientific and technological breakthroughs have led to impressive increases in agricultural productivity and reduced hunger around the world. This year, more grain will be harvested than at any time in history. And yet, in this era of plenty, 1 in 9 people do not have enough to eat. Another 2 billion eat, but their meals lack the necessary nutrition for proper health and development. These failures seriously damage life chances for individuals and reduce the potential of communities and economies. Global population growth and increasing prosperity could increase the demand for food by 50% by 2050. But our planetary boundaries are already reaching their limits. Land and freshwater resources, the very basis of our food production, are under heavy stress, and oceans are being degraded at unprecedented scale. Conflicts over resources and the devastating impacts of climate change risk pushing millions more into abject poverty. And as always, it is the poorest in our world who suffer. We see this now in Yemen, South Sudan, Somalia, and northern Nigeria, where more than 20 million people are in desperate need of food. Dear friends, the challenges to feed the world sustainably are huge. But fortunately, we are not starting from scratch. With Sustainable Development Goals, the global community has adopted a compelling vision with ambitious goals. To successfully implement the SDGs, governments of all countries must play a critical role, but it is not their responsibility alone. Fulfilling these ambitions requires the unprecedented effort by all sectors of society. And business, and I repeat, business must be at the heart of this endeavor. The expectations are high, and so are the opportunities. Across the world, an increasing number of businesses are already looking beyond short-term profit to create value through sustainable solutions for society. Such decisions are not simply motivated by altruism, but rather by clear understanding that social risks are detrimental to the bottom line. Far-sighted companies are doing business responsibly and embracing new technologies to deliver on wider goals of development, including improving access to food and clean water, to sanitation, healthcare, and education. They are building alliances and partnerships to drive innovation and create jobs and advance equitable growth. Today, I would like to highlight 5 priority areas where I believe we need to reshape agriculture and food systems to better feed the world and deliver sustainable development. First, we need greater investment, particularly in developing countries where the need and potential for increasing agricultural productivity and production are the greatest. This would help feed populations sustainably while creating jobs and incomes across rural areas, particularly for the young people and women. One example of this is in Africa, where over the last decade, countries have started to put greater emphasis on investment in agriculture and supporting policies and regulations. Indeed, history shows that increasing agricultural productivity is a critical driver for economic transformation and social development. Second, we must make sure that smallholder farmers, who produce nearly 70% of all the food consumed worldwide, are at the heart of these efforts. Government and private sector can and must form innovative partnerships with farmers' organizations and smallholders, providing access to better seeds, sustainable farming techniques, and modern technologies. I'm glad to know that major companies, including Syngenta, are already providing tools and training to smallholders in sub-Saharan Africa and other regions, thereby filling critical gaps along the value chain. It is crucial that bigger corporations share market access financing, and knowledge with small farmers and local agribusinesses. The greatest success will come if all stakeholders work in close partnerships. It is for this reason that my foundation, the Kofi Annan Foundation, is working with African leaders from various sectors in an effort to turn smallholders into agro-entrepreneurs and subsistence farms into profitable businesses. Third, we must ensure that agriculture and food systems become nutrition smart, because it is not enough. It is not just about the food we grow, it is also about the type of food we consume. After all, we are what we eat. Evidence shows that nutrition is crucial for economic growth, as better nourished populations are more productive. We need governments to urgently adopt the right policies and mobilize resources to scale up nutrition. The food industry must support these efforts by providing consumers with access to more nutritious foods. Scientific research and innovation is equally important in this context. In Ghana, my wife and I have seen firsthand the wonderful impact of biofortified vitamin A-rich sweet potatoes in helping address stunting in children and improving the health of pregnant women and mothers. Fourth, we need food systems that produce more food but with fewer resources, as we are reaching a point where our capacity to meet current and future needs is seriously jeopardized. Governments have to adopt, enforce, and strengthen policies that promote responsible natural resource management and prevent the loss of natural habitats, forests, and biodiversity. I'm glad that the European Landowners Organization and other institutions are promoting a balanced approach between economic performance and a sustainable use of natural resources. It is crucial that businesses source, process, and manage resources efficiently to meet growing demand while preserving our environment and climate. This must include responsible water stewardship, striving for zero waste, and using energy resources more sustainably. Fifth and finally, we must seize this moment to push for climate-smart agriculture and food systems. Cutting down agriculture's climate footprint and shifting towards renewable energy sources will not only help avert climate catastrophe, but also create new opportunities for investment, growth, and employment. At the same time, we need to strengthen farmers' resilience to climate-related shocks, including through weather information systems and crop insurance programs. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I recognize that the agenda is an ambitious one. There are many challenges to overcome, but shifting to sustainable food systems and agriculture is possible if sustained and bold leadership from all sectors can be ensured. We have the expertise, the technologies, and the evidence needed to succeed. Let us all, business, the public sector, the private sector, academic institutions, live up to this grave responsibility. I have often said that healthy, democratic, and prosperous societies are built on three pillars: peace and security, inclusive development, and the rule of law and respect for human rights. For there can be no long-term peace and security without development, and there can be no long-term development without peace and security. And no society can long remain prosperous without respect for rule of law and human rights. So let us turn aspirations into action and build a food-secure, sustainable, and prosperous world founded on these pillars of progress. Thank you very much.